Impossible without India. Why is China plus one starting to worry the US? A warning, many signals. Imagine this. The world's biggest powers are seated on a chessboard. Behind every move are billions of dollars, millions of jobs, and the politics of the coming decades at stake. Suddenly, one player pauses and says, "If India is not on board, this game cannot be won." This is not a movie dialogue. It is the bitter truth of today's geopolitics. The United States is now beginning to fear that the very strategy it hoped would reduce dependence on China could fail without India. The question is, why? And is this warning just a statement or a signal of much bigger changes ahead? Let us tell you that over the past few years, the world has seen the real face of supply chains. Pandemics, wars, sanctions, and trade conflicts, every shock has proved how dangerous it can be to rely too heavily on a single country. It was out of this fear that the China plus one strategy was born. The idea was simple: build one more strong alternative apart from China, so that risk could be diversified. The United States and its allies thought this path would be easy. But over time, they realized that this was not just a strategy that looked good on paper, but a highly complex game tied to ground realities. This is where India enters the picture. India today is not just an emerging market, but a country playing a decisive role in manufacturing, technology, energy, and geopolitics. A statement by former Youth's Ambassador Jeffrey Piath highlights this changed reality. He clearly said that without a strong presence in India, American companies cannot make China plus one successful. This may sound straightforward, but there are many layers hidden behind it. US-India relations have been going through a strange phase for some time now. On one hand, there is talk of strategic partnership. On the other, disagreements over trade, tariffs, and energy. India's purchase of Russian oil has become the biggest example of this clash. During President Donald Trump's tenure, a tough stance was taken against India over buying Russian oil. Penalties were imposed, signals were changed, and the message was clear. Washington wanted India to rethink its energy strategy. But it is important to understand both India's compulsion and its strategy. When the global energy market was shaken in December 2022 due to the Russia-Ukraine war, oil prices had skyrocketed. For an emerging economy like India, this was not just a foreign policy issue, but a matter of domestic stability. Cheap oil affects not only industry, but also the kitchen of the common man. And this is where a turning point comes that is often overlooked. Interestingly, India did not choose the path of buying Russian oil entirely on its own, but based on signals from the United States at that time. Under the G7 price cap mechanism, the Biden administration had indicated that India could buy Russian oil to help stabilize global prices. At that time, this step was considered strategically sound. India's import of Russian oil was still a very small part of its total energy mix. But once this policy was implemented, India's purchases increased rapidly. This is where the story takes a twist. Trump's renewed hard stance and changing signals created concern in India that US policy could change overnight. Jeffrey Piath himself acknowledged that this had led to a lack of trust within India's strategic community. One reality of American politics is this: policies can change quickly, often without much explanation. Such uncertainty is a major challenge for any country, especially when it cannot afford to gamble with its energy and economic security. But the story does not end here. In recent months, there have been signals suggesting that both India and the United States are trying to rebalance their relationship. Indian companies have taken steps to reduce imports from Russia. Reliance Industries' decision to stop importing Russian oil at its Jamnagar refinery was not just a corporate decision, but a major geo-economic signal. It shows that India is not ignoring global sanctions and changing equations, but is gradually realigning itself. In this context, the new LPG agreement between India and the United States becomes extremely significant. For the first time, India has signed a long-term agreement to import LPG from the US, which will meet nearly 10% of its annual requirement. This is no small matter. LPG is the fuel that is directly connected to crores of Indian households. With every flame burning in the kitchen, this agreement is writing a new definition of India-US relations. This deal is not just about trade, but a signal of trust. It shows that both countries want to once again make energy cooperation the backbone of their relationship. Pyat believes that this very energy cooperation can become the key to resolving those points of disagreement that have been destabilizing relations at the levels of trade and politics. Partnership in a daily-use fuel like LPG means that this relationship will not remain limited to boardrooms or diplomatic meetings, but will touch the lives of ordinary people. Now the question arises, what does all this have to do with China plus one? The answer is very deeply. Today, if you are a large American manufacturing company, simply moving out of China is not enough. You need a country that can provide scale, talent, market access, and political reliability. Vietnam, Mexico, or other countries may be options to some extent, but nowhere else offers a combination like India. India has a vast domestic market, a young workforce, a strong grip on technology, and a manufacturing ecosystem that is gradually becoming stronger. Without India, China plus one remains nothing more than an incomplete plan. This is why experienced diplomats like Pyat repeatedly emphasize that the United States and India must bring their strategic relationship back on track, no matter how many disagreements arise along the way. Here another important aspect emerges: trust. Business relationships do not run only on numbers, they run on trust. If companies fear that policies may suddenly change, sanctions may be imposed, or rules may become strict overnight, they will hesitate to invest. This has been India's concern as well. But recent steps, reducing Russian imports, the LPG agreement, and the revival of dialogue are attempts to slowly rebuild this trust. Pyat has clearly said that all the companies he works with would welcome the normalization of US-India business relations. This means corporate America has also understood that no strategy can succeed by alienating India or keeping it under pressure. This relationship can move forward only through equality and mutual understanding. Still, it would be wrong to assume that everything has suddenly become perfect. Trade negotiations are complex, and it is difficult to predict their timeline for success. Tariffs, subsidies, and market access, these issues are still on the table. But one thing is clear: the United States is no longer in a position to ignore India. And this is the biggest truth of China plus one. Today, the world appears divided into two poles. On one side is China, and on the other are Western countries. In this tug of war, India is increasingly becoming a center without which balance is difficult to achieve. This is why the United States is beginning to fear that if India is not kept on its side, China plus one will remain just a slogan, not a ground reality.
If our video has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources: news from various news agencies, opinion polls, and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.